Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you still have some energy for my presentation, which I think that it will be different, a little bit different from what you have seen so far. My name is Eiman Elgewely. I'm lecturer of Interior Architecture, Faculty of Fine Arts, Alexandria University. I have been a Fulbright Fellow in 2013-2014 in the University of California, Los Angeles at the Experiential Technology Center. The main idea behind my research is how can we create a dialogue between Egyptian museums and museums abroad, and especially in the US, that have a relevant museum collection from the same archaeological site. And in the beginning, I would like to say that this project, or my work is in the field of digital cultural heritage, which is an interdisciplinary field that is at a meeting point between art, architecture, archaeology, and of course digital technology. So when I first started working at the Experiential Technology Center, I have been introduced to Professor Velika Vendrich, who is a professor of Egyptian archaeology, and she has been excavating on Karanis site in Fayoum for more than a decade now. So after a few weeks of searching on the material of the site, I realized that this site is a perfect prototype for the nature of my research. And this is for so many reasons. For instance, Karanis is situated 60 kilometers southwest of Cairo. Its history spans more than 7 centuries. It has a very sad story behind it, which is the Sabbakhin, who used to collect the soil from the mound of Karanis to create agricultural fertilizers, and that caused huge and severe damage to the site. And this kind of damage continued through the time. For example, if you have a look on this picture on the top, it was when the site was first excavated, and this is how it looks like now. So you can see how can we use digital technology to revive such demolished and destroyed kind of cultural heritage sites. The site was first excavated between the year 1925 and 1935 by the University of Michigan, which made an excellent work documenting each mud brick building on the site by drawing maps, elevations, sections, and the excavations also yielded unexpected wealth of finds. Thousands of artifacts have been discovered on the site, and later on these finds have been distributed and divided between the University of Michigan and the Egyptian government. So these artifacts are now displayed in several museums around the world, or mainly between the US and Egypt. The Kelsey Museum of Archaeology, Egyptian Museum in Cairo, the Agricultural Museum in Cairo, and the Greco-Roman Museum in Alexandria. Some of these museums are unfortunately closed to the public. So the idea that the belongings of Karanis people have been separated from its original site and distributed in several museums around the world had been the main idea and the main motive behind this research on how can we create a virtual model of some selected buildings and courtyards of Karanis site, and to put back these artifacts in its original context and its original setting in order to reflect the type of life that Egyptians used to live in this age. So we decided to select some houses. For example, this is one of the houses. You can see here how it used to look like when it was first excavated, and this is how it lost its identity through years. These are the only kind of references I had while working in this project, which are the maps and the architectural drawings, the various architectural drawings of the University of Michigan. So I used these drawings in order to create to redraw it using 2D drafting tools, of course, and to create a 3D model of the houses. as you can see here with all the interior and the exterior details. Here, how I started by testing the light in order to simulate a realistic light exactly as the houses used to look like. And here is how I added the textures. So this is the model before adding the textures, and here is after adding the textures. I also relied on the pictures of the University of Michigan in the beginning to draw some sketches, some manual sketches of the interior of the houses, and of course the recordings they have written. And as you can see, this is the 3D renders made by the computer models. So you can see now the houses of Karanis, how it used to look like. The next step of the research was how can we start a search voyage for the items from Karanis in the various museums. So I started by visiting the Kelsey Museum of Archaeology in Ann Arbor, University of Michigan. That was facilitated by the Outreach Lecturing Fund, the Fulbright Outreach Lecturing Fund. And I started collecting some data in order to create 3D models using various techniques like photogrammetry, by taking photographs from different angles of each object in order to create the 3D model. So this is an animation of the final models, as you can see them here, with wireframe and with texture. So these are not just pictures, these are 3D models that you can use them in order to print them in 3-dimensionality using 3D printers, and also we can use them to put them back inside the virtual model. As you can see here, every item is put into its original setting. Here are the interior views after adding the items from Karanis. So after all these years of excavations, finally we have Karanis houses and the objects back into its original context. So let me show you the final result of the model. So here you can have a tour inside the house. You can start. So I'm sorry that there is something wrong with the display here. Maybe you can join me after the lecture to see it working. So it's like a walkthrough. هو شغال. Oh, okay. So let's start again. So here you can move through the model. This model could be used as an application for education in classes. It could also be displayed in the museums. So this is one of our intentions, is to, let's go back to our presentation. So our next step now is to display this virtual model in Cairo Museum and the Agricultural Museum in Cairo as well. Any help, Jama'a? Sorry. Fine. Okay. Thank you very much. It's very delayed. I'm sorry. This is like a drawing which can show us how the display is going to be. So when you are inside the museum, beside the glass cases, you can see a display where you can see how Karanis used to look like, and you can see also how it should look like now. I was very lucky to give presentation and lecture and talks about this project in different level of the process, among which the Theoretical Archaeological Group Conference, and also at the Digital Humanities Center at UCLA and the Boston Institute of Archaeology, the Kelsey Museum of Archaeology. Upon my return, I continued my search voyage to find archaeological finds from Karanis at our museums in the Agricultural Museum and in Cairo Museum, and I was very lucky to find this stuff. Also, I organized a lecture at Cairo Museum with my professor from UCLA while visiting Egypt, and we talked to them about the project, and we are now writing a grant to Museum Connect and I don't know if you know about this grant, it's also funded by the US Department of State, and it aims at creating like collaboration between US museums and Egyptian museums, and I act as a liaison for this grant. And as my colleagues have mentioned, I didn't limit my lectures and talks just about my research, but I was very keen, together with my colleagues like Ahmed Hamdan. I was very lucky that at UCLA I had Ahmed Hamdan, professor of Egyptology, and May Mugib, professor of political science. So we organized a panel about Egypt. Ahmed talked about the history of Egypt, May talked about the politics, and I talked about art and culture in Egypt before and after the revolution, and we repeated this in several other events. Of course, I was very lucky also to be part of the Fulbright enrichment program in Southern California, which really helped me to know more about the American culture and to be open to different friends from all over the world. I'm very lucky for this opportunity, and I really thank Fulbright for a lifetime experience. Thank you very much.
What programs did you use for the two-dimensional and the three-dimensional drawing?
You can have the same result using different softwares, but the ones that I usually use AutoCAD, Autodesk AutoCAD for the two-dimensional, and the 3D Studio Max for the 3D dimensional. And for creating the 3D models of the objects, the photogrammetry models, I use usually PhotoScan and 123D Catch. But of course, from my design background, I have big knowledge of using different softwares, and you can always reach what you want using different softwares. So it depends on your budget also, because there are a lot of softwares that are free, so for researchers, and this is really a very helpful thing.
That's actually the motive for my question, because if you are intending to use that in educational facilities,
yeah.
So you need things.
Yeah. For example, instead of 3D Studio Max, if you don't have a license, so you can use SketchUp, for example. You can use other rendering for the lighting, like Luminous. This is a free one. So you have always different, because I didn't have any kind of funding. I did it all by myself. So I used the very minimum facilities I could ever have. And I intend to do that with my students, actually, in some courses where we don't have lots of money to spend on licenses and things like that.
Thank you, but you've done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.